Namaste. Hello. Shalom. Salam alaikum. I want to talk about the correlation between ancient spiritual concepts, philosophical concepts, religious concepts, and the modern understanding of things. One of the greatest things that is happening in this age is to remove the gap between spirituality and religion and science. Everything is science and everything can be in some way logically explained as we evolve, even if the explanation is that it cannot be explained. And I will talk more about that. So we have different groups of people. Certain people are just emotional followers of the religions. They barely intellectualize and try to understand the deep meaning of things. Like the average person believes that Moses opened the ocean and things like that. And the meaning can be really different. The statement that Moses opened the ocean, maybe it's not a literal thing, maybe it was a symbolic thing, and so many other things mentioned in the scriptures. The second group of people, they try to understand the deeper spiritual meaning, which sometimes can be even completely 180 from what it really supposed to mean. And I'll, I'd say the best thing to do, which is not suitable for everybody, honestly, is to understand everything holistically. Like, if in certain scriptures it's been mentioned that this God came and killed that demon, maybe this can be explained in terms of the light within you, the intelligence within you, helping you control your compulsions. Now, if we look at this even more holistically, we can investigate it from different aspects because we are multi-dimensional beings all at the same time. So we have the physical body and we have the chemistry of the body and brain and nervous system and neurotransmitters and all the complex stuff. And then we have an energy body, which is really at this time, if somebody still doesn't believe in that, I think it's merely because lack of study, because in so many ways, this can be experienced and proven. So there is no doubt that we have an energy body, the meridians, the energy channels, which is the subtle part of our being. And then we have our mind and our thoughts, which is different from biological matter and brain and so on. So if we talk about that God who killed the demon, maybe this means killing your negative thoughts, destroying them in your mind. At the same time, it means a change in the chemistry of the body. And at the same time, it means a different formation or change of the direction of energy in your body. And this energy is explained and investigated in depth in yoga, in Eastern systems like Qigong, Tai Chi, acupuncture, and so on in many different ways. But ultimately, it needs to be experienced and mastered by experience, not just to study about them. So, why am I talking about all this? Because if you are a person who has curiosity and wants to dissect and understand things, then you need to understand that we have multi dimensions, and that when a certain prophet or guru talks about something, it has many layers. So the other day I mentioned about this poem by Rumi, which he is kind of picking at the superficial religious people, and he's talking about the traveling to Mecca, the sacred pilgrimage of the Muslims, and he says the real Mecca is within your heart, within you. And one part of the poem he says, hundreds of times from that route of the desert, you went to Mecca once, even for once, from this route, come to this roof. And for yogic minded people, this is very clear that the roof, when he's talking from this route, come to this roof, is talking about a place within ourselves that if your awareness is focused there enough, you can transcend the physicality and material aspect of life and experience the unity with the beloved, with the God. So this roof is the crown chakra. So if you go and study yoga in depth, you'll understand that every chakra represents a level of consciousness. And chakra is a topic that is severely abused, misused, misinterpreted all around the world. Everybody wants to teach people about chakras, but barely anybody has a real deep experience of them. Don't get me even started on that. Anyways, so let's talk about these chakras for a minute. Let's say we have different levels of intelligence, or better call it awareness, consciousness. And depending on how much your nervous system and brain is evolved, you can be at different states. Let's talk about this in a very simple way. You see, sometimes you see some people who are, maybe you call them stupid or dumb or whatever, and you see this person really doesn't have the ability to grasp even uh, a lot of things that we think it's deep, spiritual, philosophical, and has a deep meaning. So you see this all in life. For example, there are people whose their main goal and their highest thing in life is just to survive. And if you look at them, everything they do is kind of about survival. There are some other people that are pleasure seekers, and their highest goal is pleasure, usually sexual pleasure, physical pleasure, and such. And there are other people who are more power seekers, wealth seekers. They want to uh, be dominant in the society and control things and so on. You remember I said we are multidimensional. So when you talk about this thing, what does determine that somebody is lustful and somebody seeks power and somebody else seeks love and harmony and whatever? So if you ask a neuroscientist, he would say it's because of the brain. This person has this type of brain and this type of brain chemistry. this hormone neurotransmitter is more or whatever. And that's true in many ways. But what is the root cause of that state of brain and chemistry? So if we go by yogic Eastern explanation, we'll see that there is something subtler even than the biology, the physical body and neurotransmitters and so on, which is the energy and mind. Because mind is not material. Brain is an extension of the mind, and thoughts create matter. And all these things you can go and study about them. There are thousands of books written on the subject, so I cannot open each subject and explain why I say everything in this podcast. So thoughts create matter. So neurotransmitters are an effect, not the cause. The thoughts or awareness create the neurotransmitters and the body. So when we talk about the subtle dimensions and energy and chakra and whatever, what are these chakras? These chakras are the subtler aspects of your being that you function through. So let's say we have this physical body. It's like a machine. It's like a very advanced biological machine. And then it has another aspect, which we have not investigated, which is the energy body or the mind, even though these two are different. But let's just talk about both because both subtle at the same time. So this mind and energy, they create the physical body and change it. And that explains why there are people who go and try hundreds, maybe thousands of different treatments. They try everything and they don't get healed because the mind is not addressed properly. A lot of our health issues relate to mind and emotions. And there are people who get easily healed from the same treatment. So if mind creates the body, if thoughts create matter, then we have to understand that that is the cause, that is the dimension that needs to be addressed. And I was mentioning about these people who are survival mode, lustful, pleasure seeker, power seeker, and other stuff also. So if we look at this in terms of neurotransmitters, we have one interpretation, and we can do certain things, usually chemically, to control them. And even though neuroscience seems to be very advanced now, we don't even understand 1% of the chemistry of the body and how we can really manipulate it with no side effect and so on. Shamans used to be the neuroscientists before modern science came in. They had a very deep understanding of both the chemistry and the energy and so on. Just a side note. But they would do mostly the same thing using plants and substances to create changes for healing and opening the mind and consciousness and so on. So can we address everything by addressing the chemistry? Not really, because the root cause is thought and mind awareness, energy. So when I mentioned those chakras and different types of people like survival, pleasure, and all those things, I wanted to say if you look at a person in terms of body, you will see only the brain chemistry. If you look at a person in terms of mind, you will see only thought. But if you look at a person in terms of energy, you will see that, oh, because this person's energy is all concentrated in his or her second chakra, and there's energy blockages. Very simple logic of physics and electricity that energy can be accumulated in this part of the circuit. Then this person is behaving like that. It's not a conscious thing. It's a attitude, it's a subconscious thing, it's a emotional thing that is running his or her life. Why I mention this? Because here is where we can use this information to understand a lot of religion and spirituality. Religion and spiritual tradition is not about God. That's the biggest misunderstanding that we have. It's about us and our relationship to truth, universe. Some people might call it God. So if it's true, then it is important to understand that we can create change within ourselves by addressing different dimensions, layers, bodies that we have. So you could change the chemistry of the body, which is not perfect, temporarily to make a change. And you could make a change in your physical body by controlling your movement of your body or the position that you're sitting or standing or whatever. And that creates a change in some way. It affects the other layers. But if you make a change in your mind and thoughts, it has the most powerful effect, and as well as energy. So if this lustful person, for example, would want to change himself, here is where the difference of religion and spiritual traditions like yoga and Buddhism and some others is. The difference is this one. Religion, most of them, not most of them, honestly, a lot of them, especially Abrahamic religions, they would say, be good, don't do anything bad, don't look at your neighbor's wife, and all those kind of things. This is bad. They condemn certain behavior, but they don't understand that people's behavior, when suppressed, it even backfires. It becomes worse. And you should give people practical tools to change. That's why psychology and a lot of other things like that, they have been more successful than religions to help people in so many ways. Not all religions do, but let's talk about this. If you would to teach that person who is lustful a specific yogic practice, that would cause a change in his energy body and chakras. Suddenly, that person might become free of being compulsive with his pleasure seeking and sexual behaviors. The first yogi that came to US to bring the message of yoga was Swami Vivekananda. And he would give discourses on yoga and spirituality. And one time this man stand up in the crowd and told him, Swamiji, all these things that you're saying are really lovely, but we Westerners, our lifestyle doesn't really match what you want us to do. We drink, we stay up late, and we have a lot of addictions and so on. We don't have food restrictions and whatever. And he said, but do we need to give up our addictions and pleasures to practice yoga? Vivekananda looked at him and said, you do not need to give up your addictions. You will start practicing yoga and your addictions will give you up. This is what I mean by saying if that person did this yogic practice, all of a sudden, after some time, he might find that, oh, he's changed. Maybe he's not lustful or compulsive anymore. So that change was made, let's say, by doing some breathing practices, some kriyas, as yoga calls it, or it could be done with just some psychological practices, affirmations, meditations, and so on. But with chemistry alone, I doubt that you can achieve a permanent state of change, at least not if it's not combined with therapy and psychology and so on. That's why it's stupid to think these days psychedelics are becoming very popular and they have a tremendous effect on healing depression and so on. But if it's just like a chemistry, if you give a pill to somebody and say just pop it up and your issues will be fixed, it's not gonna work. If any change is going to happen, it's because of the mindset of the person, intention, environment, the support of the doctor or the shaman or whatever. These two needs to be combined. So let's wrap up. Why am I talking about all these different dimensions? It's because I want you to understand that when we say we're seeking God in religions, if you think that God is an entity sitting somewhere else and you're going to leave your body after you die and your soul is going to go to God's world dimension, then you have not understood the core message of religion and spirituality. All religions say that God is within. The kingdom of God is within you, Jesus said. The Quran says the God is closer to you than your jugular vein. If you think God is somewhere else sitting and you want to go to God, you have not understood the core message of religion and spirituality. Because only if God is within you, then you can experience God. And by experiencing God, I mean being aligned with the source of creation and all the goodness. So you can live in harmony and more possibilities and health and wealth and prosperity. And after all, peace and happiness and joy. So we have to understand that religions have expressed things in symbolic way. 2000 years ago, 5000 years ago, they could not probably speak to certain group of people in terms of chakras and energy and soul and those kinds of things in a complex way. But nowadays, we have a much more complicated intellectual capability to understand things. Not that intellectual understanding of things is going to take us to the things, but to give us clarity a little bit. So if God is within you, then that's why that mysticism and spirituality, yoga and Sufism and so on, they're all focused on changing you. And they are less concerned with external rituals and more concerned with silence and meditation and changing your thoughts and mind. So this is what I wanted to say, and to say that you can change your life by making changes in different dimensions of your life. And I have even elaborated on this in the beginning of my book, Art of Balance, which goes over different ways that we can address to change our state of being and health, fix our life issues, and ultimately experience the divine, the perfection, the enlightenment, and whatever you call it. If you like this message, please do me a favor and like and subscribe to my channel wherever you're watching this. It will greatly help motivating me to create more content and put it out there. Thank you.